Hi, I'm Dr. Mike.
And I'm Nick.
And this is
NFGeeks.
NFGeeks. Nick, once again, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
You know, as always. This episode is something I've talked about a bunch of times in different ways, but I want to get it out there again because I think it matters. A lot of important stuff coming out with these videos, you know, that we're making today.
Sure.
And the issue is about real research and real science, okay? I actually had a great conversation with Amber, who's a pneumoceptor, if you know her online on YouTube, about this, because she's in the scientific field, about how, really the thing I was talking about with her is what can be done for MBTI to return to the academic world. And this is a similar conversation, although it's a little more critical. It's basically about what, you know, how to determine whether certain typology theories are legit based on what kind of research are they actually using. And so I want to have a conversation about research and what actual research is as opposed to what everybody thinks research is, and how this is affecting various theories, even the ones we like.
Sure.
You know, even MBTI, you know, to an extent, and talk about how research models are actually constructed and why we should look at that. And understand that. It's complex, boring stuff, I admit.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's stuff that I'm not too familiar with. What's your background with the research and?
At the beginning of my graduate career, I was going to get a master's degree in psychology to get a PhD in psychology. And I spent a whole year, literally half of a graduate degree, like 18 credits, studying research methods, nothing but research methods for for a whole year.
I've done a little bit of that, yep.
Yeah,
and
on the graduate level. And as you can imagine,
tricky.
for an ENFP, it was horribly boring. Horribly boring. I remember one night, it was midnight, I was in the graduate lab putting data loads, and I thought, what am I doing here? This is so awful. But the experience was fascinating because it really gave me an understanding of how social science research is constructed. Okay, and how other research is constructed, like research that's in the classical sciences is constructed. So that experience has given me a very strong understanding of how this all works and how it gets put together in the academics setting where real theory and real research takes place. So that's where it comes from.
Okay.
So my main issue, I guess, is that very few typology theories are actually using any real research models. Well, I mean, none. I would say none of them are using actual research models.
Okay.
Even, you know, for example, even the Enneagram, okay? The Enneagram's my new favorite toy, and, you know, I can see a lot of wonderful crossover with MBTI, and I like it, but really, there's no actual academic research in that. And so we should be a little more critical and think about what is research and what can be done. And are these theories legit based on actual academic research?
My question, the main question I've always had, because I always kind of had that notion too, but not really well defined, because I always believed in them. I think a lot of people, especially
Sure.
N-types, they just believe in these and they know that they're right. But my question is, why not? I mean, this seems like, to me, something that's credible, that's reliable enough to be what it says it is, but why do you think that it's not, it hasn't gone through the academic ranks?
Well, it hasn't gone, well, there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons, and I've talked about this a bunch of times, one is that academia and psychology specifically, okay, hates Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Hates him. He's like Dr. Frankenstein of psychology. They hate him. He's the drunk uncle you keep in the attic when you know company's over.
Oh yeah, yep.
They can't stand him,
Mm-hmm.
and they hate being associated with them, and that's because psychology wants to be a real science. That's why they use standard statistical models. Okay, There's a whole other video I should do about whether psychology is actually real science. That's for another day. But so the first reason is they hate Carl Jung and anything based on Carl Jung.
Okay.
Okay, that's item one. Item two was, I would say at the beginning, sexism about Isabel Myers. You know what I mean? Because remember, she's doing this in the 50s, 60s, early 60s. You know, this isn't like today, 21st century. There's that aspect of it. Also, psychology was very much into behaviorism at that time. You know, B.F. Skinner and all this. You know, there is no mind. You know, there's just reactions to the environment that you can then manipulate totally by manipulating the environment. So, you know, and she's saying, no, there's this internal process. And, you know, psychologists saying, no, there is no internal process. Shut up. You know, get out of here. So there's that part of it. Another part of it is that academia in general hates out ideas that are outside itself. Okay? It doesn't like that somebody outside of its own process has come up with something, and they kind of shun that. The only field that doesn't is astronomy, but that's because of necessity. Okay, astronomy gets so little money and so little research time that, you know, the hobbyists who are sort of NTs, all NTs are, you know, really into astronomy. They help the field of astronomy, but that's only by necessity. If astronomy had hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, for research, they wouldn't care about the hobbyists either. Okay. So I think that's the issue specifically with the MBTI. But to add it into typology is that, you know, why is this? Is because very few people, if any, in typology, who are just, you know, playing around with it, you know, it's like we are and all that, have any kind of true quantitative research understanding. Okay, people think they're being quantitative when they've made a pie chart. Okay, anybody can make a pie chart. You know, sociology makes pie charts. You know, I just dumped on sociology there, but you know,
something that that comes to mind when you say this, like why there isn't a lot of research backing up, you know, this widely popular theory, and it's like this way, like you said with the Enneagram too, is because you know it reminds you of being like back in grade school, when you'd be in math class or something, and you would just know the answer. And all you wanted to do is just write the answer, and your teacher said, you gotta show all the work. And what I see a lot of, too, is that, you know, people will create their own theories, their own notions, have their own concepts, their own take on the MBTI, whatever it might be, and they'll just throw it out there. And the notion or the hunch might be true to some extent, but people just don't want to show the work.
Yes, and
certain establishments like academia don't want people to even go into showing the work.
I'm going to take, again, I'm very cynical today. Sure. I'm going to take it even worse than that. People don't know how to do the work. Doing academic research takes incredible amount of effort, a lot of controls, like lots of controls. So and you're always sort of testing tests within tests within tests. So like, you know, let's say there's a question on a psychology test for personality. Okay, there'll be another test to test the reliability of that one item, and then there has to be another test that tests the reliability of that one item. You know what I mean? It's very, very specific, okay, and it's very, very intricate, and it's very, very complex. And this is why, you know, people in universities only publish one article a semester, and a rinky-dink article. And when I say publish, I mean academic journals. Yeah. But you know, because it takes like 3 months just to get like a 10-page thing. Yeah. You know, with and in it a little table of numbers. No less, but it takes literally like months just to do that. So I think you know, in the typology community, people for the most part don't know how to really do this. You know what I mean? They take it at face value. For example, people take the Enneagram online, you know, various sort of surveys, you know, inventories like the MBTI. None of those are actually research-based.
I agree with you, yeah.
I mean, the research-based in a sense that, well, you know, so people answered this way, or you answered 5 this way, and that means, but it's not actually built under controlled conditions that exist.
I agree. I think that the MBTI itself is the only thing that really, I was trying to get this point across to somebody who was like, oh, why should I take the MBTI? I feel like I'm this type. I read the description. I am I'm clearly these dichotomies. I've taken all these online tests, and I feel like saying because the MBTI is the only inventory that I know of in typology, be it the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, whatever, that really, it's intrinsically been validated.
Yeah, there's actually a lot more research. I mean, this is the thing that kills me. Everybody and their uncle likes to rip apart the MBTI, but really the actual inventory has gone through the most research than any of these things.
And when I'm taking
for decades, no less.
And when I'm taking it, I can tell I have this very I do have an intuitive sense that this thing was designed in such a way for it to come out correctly.
Yes.
If you're answering them honestly and truthfully.
And refined.
Yeah.
I mean, they refine it. I mean, there's different versions of it that the Myers-Briggs Foundation sort of, adopts and uses too. And I think another mistake is that people think when they say observing something, like everybody's talking about observing this, observing that, they kind of go back to cartoons and movies where, like, if you're observing, you're watching bubbles come up in a test tube or something. But when they say observing in academic research, they're totally talking about measurements. They're talking about numbers. How the measurement of this variable, when changes the measurement on this other variable. That's it. It's all numbers. So when they say we observed this, they didn't actually look at like a physical thing. They watched mathematically the inferential statistical relationship. See, now it's getting complex. the numbers, the math. I'll dumb it down. They're watching they're observing how the math is affecting things, and the observation is about this number is different, now this number is different. It's looking at numbers. It's not actually observing any kind of physical thing at all. And I think and I know that seems counterintuitive, but
that makes sense because it's going through a process of being verified over and over and over again. It's not about
and this
what's
is why
in the air, what's in the atmosphere. It's about what's
right, and this is why it is valid. That's a great point. The reason why it becomes more valid is because you can reconstruct the mathematical model. You know what I mean? I can't reconstruct the exact physical conditions of an experiment, sort of, but I can construct the mathematical model. They said that these numbers through this equation comes up this way. I can reconstruct that because it's abstract, and that's how all the science, all psychology research is done this way. All classical science research is done this way, and when you know it, you do have a better view of the world. I remember when this is when I knew it was worthy of doing all these horrible, painful, boring classes on statistical research, is that I remember right after I took a year of this, the Space Shuttle Columbia, disintegrated in the atmosphere, this whole thing. And I was watching the NASA press conference. That's very nerdy of me. But I was watching the NASA press conference, and they said, well, how are you going to find out what happened? And they said, well, we're going to use some multiple regression simulations and things. And I knew exactly what they were talking about, multiple regression. Multiple independent variables on one dependent variable, find out the correlation coefficient of all the, like, I literally immediately understood how they were approaching the problem.
Yeah, and I think the thing that does, which again, ultimately, I'm the kind of person that, when I know something, I know something. That's great for me, okay, but, for other people, I think what that kind of external logic does for people is that, you're right, it makes you feel like something's credible. When you graduate with a degree, it's there you go. It's like getting certified or getting, graduating. Yes, before you graduate, you probably you're smart, Well, I mean, just anybody. You're smart. There's people who haven't graduated college that are geniuses, but that's great for that person, and that's great for people who believe in that person. But external logic like that, it's for other people to make other people feel like that's credible.
And that's all the time we have. So thank you very much, Nick.
Hey, no problem.